my favorite day of the week, Thursday. Happy Thursday to all of you, and welcome. Welcome to another episode of Get Your Happy On. This is what I like to call the hashtag Happy Half Hour. Do you have your favorite beverage? Yes, your favorite beverage. You can bring your own favorite beverage to the show. And if you recall, I did a creative workshop with the amazing Chris Dyer, and we learned to embellish our tumblers with all these beautiful Swarovski crystals. And I had extra. So I decided to embellish this mug. And I love the quote on here. It says, "Treat me like the queen I am." So the two most powerful words in the language is "I am." And please let us know where you're watching us from. Say hello in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Give you a big shout out on the screen here. And I'm so excited. I am super excited for the guest that we've got on today. And I'm going to bring him on here in just a few minutes. 1 second. But my guest today is Freedom Malhotra, and he's a multi-hyphenate. So how many of my entrepreneur friends can relate to being a multi-hyphenate? Author, speaker, trainer, coach, thought leader. So with that, we'll bring up Freedom Malhotra here. Ta-da! There you are. Hi, Freedom.
Hi, Olivia. Thanks for having me here today. Really excited to talk to you.
Absolutely. Did you bring your favorite beverage?
I did bring a beverage. It's almost finished though, but yes.
Awesome. Welcome. And for those of you who want to know the backstory, I mean, Freedom I met like a year ago through networking, right? Online networking through Lunch and Learn. And you were just one of those people that just made an incredible first impression. Like you came on, did a fantastic presentation for us about the UNpursuit of Happiness. And it really struck a chord with me. It really
Thank you,
did.
Olivia. Thank
You're
you so much.
welcome. And we've stayed in touch here and there. You know, like I follow you in your social media, I'm on your LinkedIn, etc. But this is our really first time to really sit down and explore this topic further.
Yes.
And I thought of you because I've got this live stream now, Get Your Happy On, happiness topics. But I also wanted to maybe explore an alternative perspective on happiness. There's another dimension to it. And I don't know how many of you watching have read this book? It's the autobiography of Andre Agassi, and it's called Opened. And Freedom, you read this book. What was your first impression of it?
Well, I think it's a fantastic book. Agassi does a great job being vulnerable and frankly open about a lot of his experiences as a world-class tennis player, as we all know, considered one of the best players, singles players of all time. And particularly, I know you're mentioning this because I know when I gave my talk, I mentioned when he won the Wimbledon, his first Grand Slam, and he writes particularly about that. That big moment in his life, of course, was ecstatic. He had the euphoria, as you mentioned, the dopamine release of winning, triumphing, and on that moment, and then shortly thereafter, I think within 24 hours, and he writes about how he had uncovered what he described as the dirty little secret. And the secret, I think in one line was, success changes nothing. And it relates indirectly to happiness because I think, when a lot of people talk about happiness, and I know that first we have to define our terms, but usually simply happiness is about feeling good. And for a lot of us, achieving our goals is supposed to maybe change things permanently. But Agassi really debunks that whole idea and just says, look, success changes nothing. And I found that very important to bring up in the conversation of what I describe as the UNpursuit of happiness.
Exactly. And something about just we're striving all the time. We're striving for that external, when I get this, so when I get that, it'll make me happy. And in this case, he achieved everything he wanted. Like he was groomed to be like a tennis champion and still felt very unfulfilled inside.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to that. That becomes so. First of all, I want to make one thing very clear. I'm not against happiness. So before I'm not this guy who just sits there. I'm not the Grinch, just wanting to steal people's happiness away or any way by any means. And I would say that I enjoy the happiness that I have. But we do live in a culture where we're chasing after something. And I think I'd rather pose the question as to what are we running away from? I think
Mm,
it's a more important question. And I think intentions are key here, right? When we go happiness, it's great. I mean, when you talk about yourself, like I've gone to happiness yoga and I think in other activities that we do to elevate our good feelings. But in the end, what is the intention? And are we running away from something? Are we trying to cover up difficult emotions? And I am concerned about living in a society. I'd say maybe this is the world, perhaps, but I definitely can speak to North America here in Canada. And obviously, the States being heavily influenced, we're very similar in our cultures. Maybe that's a controversial statement for but I would say, like really we are. We consume a lot of the same media, have similar lifestyles, similar quality of living. So what I meant to say that is that we have similar perspectives, but what are we running away from is the question.
yeah, and I just want to give a shout out to Steve. So, Steve Garvin, my wonderful co host of Singing Heart Song Summit and longtime collaborator, he writes that he has not read the book yet. So, Steve, get it. Get it today. Get it on Goodreads. Get it on Kindle. It's an amazing biography. Yeah, like, and what you said, Freedom, a very vulnerable and taking us through, his trials and tribulations. We're dealing with that. And, yes, Steve. So you can't fill the void inside with the things on the outside. Yes.
Yeah, and the void is something that I always invite people to think about because the void is usually implies something, a sense of something missing. And while Steve says you can't find it from the outside, but I also wonder whether you can find it from the inside. Is there some unsettling emotions that we just are not coming to terms with? We think there's a solution to them, and I often wonder maybe there's not a solution. We just have to come to terms with some difficult emotions that are inescapable.
I was reading your website earlier today, Freedom, to get ready, and I just love this phrase. It jumped out at me on your website. That how you just enjoy solving the invisible puzzle of the human heart and mind. That void.
Yeah, yeah, I guess that's the question, right? Of the what are we running towards? For a lot of us, that's too deep of a question. I get it. And we're trying to cope with life and we're trying to manage. I understand that. But this is where I think it's really important to address why we're doing things because it can be really misleading. I am concerned about the manipulation that also comes into play with happiness because happiness is a lot of the time we're sold products on the pretense that they will give us fulfillment, to your earlier point, right? That
Mm.
they are the magic pill, that if we follow this system, we follow this ideology, or we lose 10 pounds, we're suddenly magically going to escape the difficult emotions. But we do find that again, like Agassi, the triumph lasts for a little while and the dirty little secrets begin to unravel and we're back to those difficult emotions again. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's where those are the questions I like to ask.
So, what is your recommendation for us? Can you talk about like how do we start probing these deep questions? Like, what does it require us to do?
I think it requires something that the first thing is always awareness. So for those that are inclined to know themselves deeply and want to explore it is to start to watch. Are there emotions when you go reach for something? What difficult emotions are you trying to push away? And it's difficult because the narrative around mental well-being is again, and I love to hear your perspectives as well, but it's just like the mental well-being, for the most part, it seems to me, and I'm really concerned, is that we're supposed to be without anxiety, without experiences of sometimes depression or difficult emotions or loneliness. And if we have those difficult emotions, there's a judgment that there's something wrong. There's something wrong with us. And even when people talk about them and say, hey, it's okay, they really mean it's okay. You can admit it, but you better, and here's what you can do to get out of it. So there's still a judgment implied that there's something that you need to get out of these difficult feelings and get to the happy place. And I describe it as the emotional apartheid. If you remember in my talk, apartheid was a South African expression for racial segregation and it means apartness. But what we've done emotionally is we've put happiness at the pinnacle of everything, good emotions. If you're happy, you're feeling good. And you can watch this on social media. It's constant judgments of if you're happy, successful people are happy, unsuccessful people are not. People like have these sweeping generalizations about emotions, and it's and I think it does it really creates a difficult place for people to go when they're going through hard times, and be able to really be open to them and explore them. I do think that difficult emotions are essential. I
Mm-hmm.
think that they are, and there's a difference between chronic depression, which is debilitating and needs you definitely need to get help. If you can't eat and you lost your appetite and you can't go to work, I get that. Okay, that's it's creating dysfunctionalities that threaten your well-being. But for most of us, it's a fact that we will go through moderate depression and moderate anxiety in life. And if you study biographies, our earlier Steve there, who loves the biographies, and I love them as well, you'll find that everyone goes through these difficult emotions. Yet in the 21st century, every everybody seems to be think that they've got some mental illness because they're going through tough times. And I think there's a big gray area there.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm recalling my experience when I left my job. So
Right.
I became a recent entrepreneur, and last year, and I had an exit plan. I had my corporate exit strategy. I'd worked with a coach, had it all figured out, right? When I was going to make this leap into entrepreneurship, I was ready to go. And then the moment I left, and I was expecting all this fanfare, I got none of it. I was in bed, and I was sad, and I was grieving. I was going through a difficult emotion. And it was so easy to like maybe turn to binge watching, right? I could turn on Netflix. It was so easy to like binge eat an ice cream, or do everything to kind of get over it and tamper that down. But I really had to sit down with myself and be with my negative, be with my difficult emotions. And some of it was negative, but I learned that it's okay to be sitting and uncomfortable for a bit and grieving.
When you say negative, what do you mean by that, if you don't mind me asking? And I mean it not in a right or wrong way, just to explore. What did you mean by negative?
I think I was just feeling sad, disappointment,
Sure.
maybe like frustration. Like, where's my parade?
Well, here's the thing, like Olivia, like we had to look at the double-edged sword of socialization. So, like when you go from a structured environment to corporate, I've been there as well. There's a set routine, and there's the belonging of there's a role, there's feedback from your peers, there's feedback from your superiors, and all of that lends towards a sense of belonging. And if we think of socialization when we're raising, like I'm a parent, we and not only that, anybody who goes through society, we're tribal in nature. Is that even in a family unit, we know from our parents immediately that there's a right and a wrong, and if we deviate, we experience this withdrawal of acceptance, withdrawal of love, and all of that creates difficult emotions because we long for that acceptance, we long for that parade, if you will, and that those feelings, those good feelings that we get, feedback, is what allows us to figure out the rules of society, what's acceptable, what's not, what should we do, what's not. But then here's the other question: as we talk about leadership and we talk about entrepreneurship and we talk about going off and blazing our own trail, we don't get that feedback. We leaders, especially if they speak out against the crowd, are going through dopamine withdrawal. They're not getting that happiness. what is happiness? I mean, it's a good feeling, and it comes from a neurochemical release: dopamine, serotonin. There's all those oxytocin. There's special neurochemicals that are released. Well, leadership, sometimes you're alone for hours as an as an entrepreneur. You're working on one piece of a big project that might not even get fulfillment for years or 6 months, and nobody's applauding you. You're getting no dopamine, and that's what I mean by the unpursuit of happiness. Because sometimes we have to go through difficult, we have to lean in outside of our comfort zone to grow as human beings.
Mm.
Not always, and I'm not saying that we don't need belonging. We should not have those support systems. We all need them, like coaching, as you mentioned earlier to me. I think maybe that was off call, but off the live session. But we do need support. We do need encouragement. But often we have to lean into difficult emotions in order to become better human beings. That's my premise.
Mm.
So that, hence the phrase, the unpursuit of happiness. Not that happiness is not there, but let's pursue something bigger than ourselves and our feelings. Is my point.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I hadn't thought of back to that moment in a long time, but I've grown from it. I've grown.
Good.
I survived. I'm here now.
100%.
I'm taking creative risk and I'm applauding myself. So
Yeah, and that's important. That's totally important. It's
awesome.
important.
And another multi hyphenate is that you're an author. So you've written this book called Born on the Mountaintop. I'm going to flash it on the screen here, and it's available on Amazon. So talk to me about, how did this book come to be? Because in it you explore the 13, I believe, psychological addictions behind
Yeah.
human
So
suffering. So how did that research come to be?
absolutely. So I'm the co-author of this book. Just to be clear, it's me and my brother Satyam Malhotra. So
Okay.
we both wrote this together, and the genesis of this is really the same as my topic, my theme, the unpursuit of happiness. But this was a while before that. And basically, it's this concept of, well, why is it that this reoccurring sense of chronic dissatisfaction keeps coming? You chase after something or you work on something, whether it be more success, going back to Andre Agassi's experience that we spoke about, or more spirituality, or more perfection, or more productivity, more. But what for me personally came is that same experience kept coming up: is this it? After the euphoria goes away, the uneasy feelings come back. And so when this book started to come together, it wasn't really a book. It was really a question in my mind of, what's going on? Is there something wrong with me? Why am I constantly find myself in pursuit, chasing all these things? So the Born on the Mountaintop is a play on words, because we're always chasing the mountaintop. And so Born on the Mountaintop is saying, hey, look, it's kind of playing on the mountaintop. Really, you're already on the mountaintop. But essentially, when we talk about psychological addictions, what that book was about was addressing a belief. So it's more. So those are ideas I might not stand behind today for all 100%, but I will explain that the addictions are these ideas of feeling unworthy, not feeling good enough, and that creating a pattern behavior of what you do to feel worthy. So maybe if I'm more successful, I'll feel better. Maybe if I'm more spiritual, I'll feel better. Maybe if I get more attention on social media, if I get 10,000 followers or whatever, I'll feel better. So on and on it goes, and it becomes a pattern, because once you get it, the euphoria goes away, happiness goes away, and you're left struggling to climb another mountaintop, is the essence of it. And so the book's about self-awareness. It does a really good job, and of course I'm biased, but it was a while ago, and I don't really I don't really promote the book that much anymore for the last 10 years almost. But the book's still there, and it's a really good self-awareness journey for anybody who wants to break down those patterns. That's
Mhm.
what they're about.
Well, you said earlier, how do we get to this place of like deep reflection on those like, probing questions? So this would be a good
Absolutely.
place to start, right? Just to expand our thinking a little bit. and contemplate on these things and develop that self awareness. Like you said, it starts with a self awareness, recognizing
100%.
emotions.
Yeah,
And
and look, not everybody wants to do this work. I get that. Some of us just want to feel good and avoid bad feelings. I get that too. But I am concerned about the welfare of humanity if we just allow for that, if we just settle on that default operating system of the mind where we just seek pleasure and avoid pain, which is what neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, and all that is kind of says that's the way we are.
yeah, exactly. Excellent. Freedom. Freedom is frozen in time. And right before we came onto the show, I mentioned to Freedom, my affinity for going live because it's just a way to just be spontaneous and go with the flow. And sometimes these things happen where your guest may be frozen or there's a technology glitch, and it's okay. You just learn to roll with the punches. And so I'm hoping that Freedom will come back and join us. And I'd be curious if you are still watching, what are your thoughts and comments about this topic? So go ahead and pop them in the chat. I'd love to hear from you about what you're thinking right now about difficult emotions and how essential they may be, and also around, good reads, particularly Born on the Mountaintop. I highly recommend that, or even just reading different biographies to understand that we're not alone, right? We're not alone in the trials and challenges that we face, and to perhaps learn from other people how they've overcome that, and glean some inspiration, new ideas and strategies, etc. behind that. So let me just message Freedom to come back. And so this is what happens when you go live, and it's okay. It's okay. So let me just message him. Please come back. Same link. Excellent. Because we still have a couple more segments of the show to go through. We still have table topics. We still have rapid fire question time. And what you may not know is that Freedom right now is really focusing on empowering youth. And so his newest business venture is around the young leaders. So the young leaders empowering youth to uncover their greatness. And I already can think of my colleague Irma Gusen. So Irma Gusen, the youth whisperer, and also a new connection that I've made recently through the Sing Your Heart Song Summit, Jan Roberts. And so both of them have a penchant for working with youths. And so definitely I feel, Irma, Jan, if you're watching this later on, to definitely connect with Freedom Malhotra, because I think there may be some collaboration there too. Um, Oh, Marilyn, yes. Oh, gosh, Marilyn, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this. So, you can recall many times in the past when resisting negative emotions only resulted in carrying them with me and affecting my success and peace of mind for years. Being willing to experience the feelings and situations empowered me to discover many insights. Wow, Marilyn, thank you so much for opening up and sharing that with us right now. And here's Freedom.
Not sure what happened.
That's okay. We're touching on a sensitive topic, and so maybe the computer is just taking a pause. Um, but isn't it so funny? Because right before during our rehearsal time, I was like, I like to go live because you just got to roll the punches, and there it is. We just demonstrated that.
Absolutely. There
So,
we are. So what
but
did I miss?
so I was just about to embark on your work with the youths, and Marilyn is jumping in. She's watching us on Facebook right now, and Marilyn wrote this
Right.
in the chat. Oh, there's more. Oh, hang on one second. So your comment, Marilyn, is really long, and I'm only seeing a snippet. But let me see if I can read the whole thing. But Marilyn is liking this discussion very much, Freedom, and she recalls a time in the past when she had to resist, and resisting negative emotions, right, is also
Yes.
damaging. And so she says here, um, her insights. Yes, so being willing to experience the feelings and situations that may have been difficult empowered her to discover many insights about her. And about how I create and then sabotage my desire for happiness and success. Thank you for this interview. It's a gift to us personally and certainly to the world. Can you talk about that too, Freedom? Does that come up, the self sabotage?
Well, yeah, of course. Of course, we sabotage ourselves. Usually, I think it needs to have context, I suppose. There's a lot to her comment, and I'm sure she could be interviewed, on her own. But I'd say that look, my biggest concern, and for me is that, and I suppose it's reflecting on my own life, is that I've probably spent most of my life chasing this emotional pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that doesn't exist. And for me, that was it seems like a big loss. At times, people had told me it existed. Maybe they knew otherwise. Maybe they were coming from the best of intentions. But I've chased a lot of rainbows, looking for that fulfillment, so to speak. And I think for me, coming to terms with my humanity, understanding that difficult emotions are part of my humanity, has just allowed me to stop spending time trying to fix something that I think is not broken. I personally don't think there is a void. I know that's it might people think there's a void because they feel that something's missing. But I think the idea of something missing leads you down a rabbit hole. It has for me.
Mm,
Really, yeah, maybe you have goals. Sure, I understand that. But I think we both know as entrepreneurs, you achieve one goal. And as people committed to growing as human beings, not long before, you should probably create another goal, that's bigger than the previous goal. So we're an ongoing quest for things. And that's part of being human. That's part of growth, which I'm an advocate of. Yet, let's not confuse that with this emotional utopia that doesn't exist. And I think that for thousands of years, at least from my research, because I have spent a lot of time researching this, several years, is that this comes up. We're told that there is this through various philosophies, Eastern, Western, I'll dare say even sometimes religious ideology, that there is this emotional utopia. And I think it's really dangerous to succumb to that.
wow, powerful. This is a very powerful discussion, very thought provoking. So, if any of you are watching this on replay, please continue the conversation and get in touch with Freedom. Freedom is available on LinkedIn. So, definitely a worthwhile connection, someone that you'd like to have in your corner. And then he also has a fantastic website where you can go and get in touch with him as well, too. So, Marilyn, if you'd like to reach out to Freedom, I highly recommend his website for you. And I'd like to talk about your work with the youth, right? So you've got
Sure.
this business venture, the young leaders. Can you talk more about that and what you're looking to achieve? And how does your research around this topic feed into this, right? Empowering youth for leadership and empowering them for greatness?
Yes, Olivia. So the Young Leaders began in 2019. I'm a father of two kids that are now 13 and 10. So 3 years ago we began it right before the pandemic, about 8 months before the pandemic. We started this. It was a live class, and the idea behind it is quite simple. As an entrepreneur, as many of your listeners, and I've been an entrepreneur for quite a while now, almost over a decade, well over a decade, and reflecting on my entrepreneurial experience, reflecting on my education, even having undergrad, having an MBA, I really started to think, wow, there's so much that we're not taught, so much that's just practical, from goal setting. And I know many people know this, from even budgeting, financial management, to basic confidence. And I meet a lot of young people, and I was actually met two of my son's friends just last week, and I told them, look, I said hello to them, and they could not even look me in the eye. These are kids that are about to go to high school. They just didn't have the confidence to look into an adult's eyes and say hello. And this is a common thing. So it's a combination of recognizing there's a lot to learn, that we're not having conversations in school about leadership skills. I know
Mm.
that's a vague term, but we've broken that down into 24 distinct leadership skills. And then also reflecting on my youth, I'll tell you, there was one speech that changed my life. I had my confidence was teetering to like almost nothing. I was having a tough time in my grade school, and I gave one speech. My grandfather helped me with that speech. I was in grade 5. I was 10 years old. My grandfather was really excited about it because he was a freedom fighter. He was a political advocate. Like he was very hot, heavily involved in politics back in his younger years. So when he heard me say, I'm going to give a speech, he was so excited. So it became a grandfather grandson bonding experience to write this speech, which he wrote, which he helped me a lot with. Truthfully, he probably wrote most of it. And I delivered it, and I got selected to deliver it in front of the whole school, and I got some recognition. But that experience of an introverted person, and I am quite introverted, like spend a lot of time thinking, reflecting, to have a platform to be able to be heard by 20, 30 people in my classroom, and then just to be able to reflect and to be able to speak. I thought, wow, this would be great to start the young leaders to bring public speaking and leadership skills together. And that's it. That's what we did. That's what we started. It's evolved to much more. And we're looking for it to have more youth involved and support from the community. It's a non for profit charity now.
That is fantastic. And you know me, I love power connecting. And so as you're talking, I already can come to mind like three amazing people I'd love for you to get connected with on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Irma Goosen, she's up in Canada and she does a lot with youths and, you know, wanting to help them, you know, reach their potential. And then Jan Roberts is a new connection. He's based in South Africa, but he does a lot too with that population. And Jackie Bailey. So Jackie Bailey has been a presenter at my Senior Heart Song Summit, and she runs a Toastmasters club for youths. And did you know they have a junior club called the Gavel,
I
right?
do know that. I do
Okay.
know that, and they have it a little further away, but they're booked solid. It's a small group, and they do a great job with public speaking. Naturally, they cover a lot of that great public speaking skills. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So I think there might be a lot of synergy between you and Jackie because you're merging, right? Like the this public speaking and the leadership principles in youths. I'm curious, what is the age group? Like when you say youths and young leaders, right? What is the age group that you're looking to work with?
We are working with kids as young as our youngest is about 10, 11, and our oldest are up to 18. So that's our age group. Is Most of our kids fall between 12 and 18, and we really don't have so we don't really have an age mindset. Sometimes, we like in terms of like we're going to group all the high school kids together and neglect, because really the mindset is more from my martial arts background, is that older kids can help younger kids, and truthfully, some of our younger kids, they can speak, and a lot of the older kids can learn from them. So like skills are skills, and so we're not really we're not so hung up on age, but more so a supportive environment where we're helping one another and listening to one another and growing together. That's the idea.
And
It's the spirit of a
how
club.
amazing too that you're giving kids a platform to speak, right? Because I think sometimes they want to be heard and no one is taking the time to listen.
Olivia, after 2 years of doing this program, we finally came with the idea of talking to the youth, because we had some youth that have been here for the entire 3 years, some that had just joined for a couple months. So we did one-on-one interviews. And the common feedback was, this is so different from school. It's a little sad to say, but hopefully school will change. And I asked, well, what do you mean? A lot of kids are like, we get to talk here. We feel heard. And it is a youth empowerment, and the youth are the ones that are speaking and talking about the concepts, like everything that we discuss. And we open it up, and we as the facilitators are learning as well. We are students, so that culture of coming in with that mindset changes the experiences dramatically for everybody involved.
Awesome. I'm so excited that you're creating a supportive environment. And wow, that's so powerful that, outside of school, they have a place to go, right?
Yes.
Amazing. Amazing.
And it's an online club now, so kids from Florida can join where you are. Anybody can join now. So
The world is flat. Yes.
yes,
Just a Zoom call away. Awesome. Well, we're getting towards the end of our segment here, but I always like to introduce table topics. So I've got my magical table topics happiness here.
thank
And
you.
I pulled a question today. So this is it. The quote here is always realize you have a choice and the decision is up to you. You have a choice. And so the question I want to ask you, Freedom, is when's the last time you took a big risk? Can you talk about that?
100%. So what comes to mind, Olivia, is as I started to delve deeper into what I'd say my own difficult emotions. Like I've done research, and I have basically the unpublished books that I want to publish. So the debunking the myths around happiness is one book that is unpublished. But while I was going deeper down on these difficult emotions, I'd open up myself to many of these deeper emotions. And then there was, while I started to get in the first year of my research, I began to identify that I had this real fear around my own death, my own mortality, and and it was to a point that it made me very uncomfortable around others that talked about people in their lives that had passed away or were dying, and it was so hard for me to confront this psychologically. So I decided to do a project around this, like my own research, and study it deeply for a year. And it was a big risk for me because here I was turning into this really difficult emotions and, reading about other people that had written biographies and memoirs of dying and just also opening my mind to how this may have been distorting my perception of life. That was my premise. I was thinking, like, if I'm not going to be able to lean, we all could die any moment. That's really difficult to think about, or even entertain, right? So I was leaning into this, and frankly, it kept me up many nights. It opened up a lot of difficult feelings for me. And I did this for well over a year. And I also, my kids saw me with all these books on death, and they're like, wondering what's wrong with dad. Like, are you okay? And it was a difficult study, but it was so empowering. And it's not over by any means. Like, I think it's one of those things you open up, you keep revisiting. But I think that was a big risk because I think there's a lot of like sense, a lot of like, don't talk about it, don't think about it. Like, I come from that, like that background. I think a lot of people can relate to is don't talk about dying, don't talk about death, don't think about it. Everybody gets really, not everybody, but a lot of people get uptight, at least in my circle. And for me, I was uptight. So it was a risk because it really I was dealing with a lot of difficult emotions for a lot. I was sitting in them, really waist deep, if you will.
Wow. Sounds
You
like
weren't expecting that, were you?
I was not, but it sounds like a workshop. I'm just
Could
going to
be.
drop that nugget in there. If you go to Freedom's website, he has a thought experiment that you'll just have to go on and explore.
That's
All
right. That's
right,
right.
awesome. So now it is time for a rapid fire question time.
Sure.
This is my favorite segment of the show as we wrap this up because you've been just a fantastic guest, and we're going to ask you 21 questions. Are you ready, Freedom?
I
Uh,
think so. Ready or not, right?
Ready
Ready
or
or
not? Here we come. So take a deep breath in.
not. Okay.
Maybe have a drink.
Have some water then.
Awesome. So here we go. Rapid fire question time. The beach or the mountains?
The beach.
Your favorite quote?
Oh boy, it's right here. Do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength To endure a difficult one. That's by Bruce Lee. I did just make sure I don't, it's hanging on my wall. I don't want to mess it up. So,
Love it. I love it that you have front and center in your office. Amazing. All
yes,
right. Do your kids get along?
sometimes.
Your favorite activity with your kids?
Watching movies.
Who's the last person you hugged?
My son.
What song reminds you of one of your relationships?
So that's a tough one.
Rapid fire.
Here Comes the Sun. Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles.
Awesome choice. Here comes the sun. Have you ever been to Africa?
No.
Who do you most admire?
My wife. Yeah.
What is your favorite vegetable?
Oh boy. Do I have a favorite? I'm vegetarian, but I don't think I have a favorite vegetable. Salad, if that's a vegetable.
Salad? I will take it. It's an assortment of vegetables. Okay. Are you a collector? Do you have a collection of anything?
Books.
What is your spirit animal?
I have two: Siberian tiger and sea turtle.
Ooh, I'm just imagining like the sea turtle body and Siberian tiger head.
As long as the tiger doesn't eat the turtle, I'm okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. So, how would you describe a game of tug and war?
uh, I keep tugging and tugging until I win or get defeated.
How long does it take you to complete a 1,000 piece puzzle?
1,000 days.
Okay.
It's not going to happen. It's pretty much
Do you prefer trains or planes?
trains.
Would you kiss a penguin?
Sure.
What did you enjoy about writing your book, Born on the Mountaintop?
I enjoyed reflecting and yeah, just the breakthroughs.
What did you least enjoy about writing this book?
Editing.
If Andre Agassi came on this live stream right now, what would you say to him?
I would thank him for his book and his vulnerability.
Is it wrong for a vegetarian to eat animal crackers?
No, I don't. No,
How much do you love zucchini?
not much. That's part of the unpursuit of happiness. I just eat it because it's healthy.
And last question, what is your favorite childhood food?
It's still the food I eat today. It's popcorn. Popcorn. I like popcorn.
Popcorn?
Yeah.
Awesome. You did fantastic, Freedom.
Thank you.
Yay!
That was fun.
Marilyn wants to thank you. Marilyn is saying
Thank
thank
you,
you,
Marilyn.
Freedom, for being so vulnerable. I know your young leaders are inspired by your genuine care. Your gift to the world is empowering our future history makers. Thank you. Marilyn, that was so heartfelt. Thank you so much for saying
Thank
that.
you, Marilyn.
And
Very kind of you.
oh my gosh, you have been an awesome guest. I'm so glad we got reconnected.
Me
And
too.
I love following you. I love being in your circles. And so thank you so much for being on this episode of Get You Happy
Thank
On.
you, Olivia.
You're very welcome. You are so welcome. So with that being said, we're going to sign off. Thank you for watching Get Your Happy On. So come back next week for another lively episode, Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Bye, everyone.